Welcome back to another episode, episode 2. All right, guys, if you haven't viewed the first episode, you need to go back and see that first episode. It was packed with a bunch of personal development, growth, mindset. It had everything you need in it to help yourself grow, evolve, get better. All right, so welcome back to another episode. This is episode 2, and I just hope that you guys are having as much fun as I am and Tawanda's having on this show, because life is all about enjoyment. You must enjoy your life. All right, so I'd like to introduce myself. If you haven't watched the first video, again, go back and watch that. If you haven't subscribed, click that subscribe button. If you haven't liked the video, like the video. And if you haven't commented, make sure you comment. My name is Marcel Hyde, aka Marcel Mindset. You can find me on Instagram, Marcel Mindset. You're gonna want to take notes on this episode because Tawanda and myself are bringing some
Oh
extremely,
yeah, oh yeah.
extremely great information. All right, Tawanda, how you doing?
Awesome, man. Awesome, man. Thank you for that awesome introduction. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tawanda Chirenda. Really excited to be here today, founder of Becoming a Willing Student. We had a great discussion in the first episode and really looking forward to this one today and really jumping in and getting deep in some of the topics that are really exciting to us and to our audience. So thank you guys. And thanks, Marcel. Looking forward to this. Excited. And let's enjoy, have fun. Like we said in the first episode, man, it's really just about the process, right? And enjoying that and just really opening up and having those deep conversations about some of the things that we care about. So really excited to be here. Yeah, pumped up. Let's do this.
Yeah, great, Tawanda. And I
Yeah.
want to preface the show by saying this is a show for men that want to just grow, that want to get to that next level. And it's a community where men can feel safe that they can come to. It's a community where men are among other men who just want better for themselves, want better for their life. But I also want to say there may be some females that come across here, and I want to say you are welcome. All right, you're welcome in this community as well too. You're welcome to view the content. You're welcome to comment. You're welcome to be a part of this. I do want to emphasize that we've created this community to really touch the lives of men, but I do understand that women will also be touched by these episodes and they will learn too. All right.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think I agree with that. Yeah, our audience is men, but women are welcome as well. I'm sure they'll benefit as well from some of the conversations we're having, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Money, 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 money. So that, as you can tell, is the first topic of discussion that we
Yeah.
will be talking about. And you know what? As much as you want to deny it, you need to talk about it. As much as you want to avoid it, you need to look at it. As much as you don't want to look at your bank account, you need to look
You
at
gotta get your money right.
you got to get your money right. All right. All right. Men out there, you must get your money right. And if you're someone that is coming here today and you have no money, it's okay. Today, you can start getting yourself together, right? Don't shame yourself. Don't put yourself down. It's never too late to make a difference. All right. And change things, your money habits in your life. All right. So we're going to really just start off by just talking about some things I've learned about money on my journey. And I'm still learning. I still take the time, and I think it's very important to, study money, to study financial literacy. It's so important. So I'm going to start off with some things that I've learned over the years, and Tawana will, also talk about some things that he's learned about money that are so important. So my first point here is save. All right. So my thing is, like, I know there's like Dave Ramsey and other people that are out there that talk about money. My thing is you must save 1 year's worth of income. And I'm saying 1 year because I've been in a position before where I've been laid off a job and it was unexpected, right? And there's something called employment insurance in Canada. So yes, you could get some type of employment insurance, but depending on your expenses, that might not cover your expenses. So I always suggest men or people in general just save 1 year's worth of money. It's so important that you have that nest there because you just never know what can happen in life. All right. My second point is spend less than you earn. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's something called lifestyle creep. And it happened to me, right? There was
Oh
one
yeah.
when I first started working, right? I remember working my first job, entry level job. I made no money. And then a couple years later, boom, I started making a lot more money, double the income income that I was making, and I doubled the amount of money I was spending too. So it was almost like I didn't make any money because I was spending everything that I was making. And there's people out there that are millionaires but have less money than people who are earning 60K, 70K, 80K. So I finally learned that there's a psychology to money and you must spend less than you earn. All right. I'm not going to go too deep into that because we have a bunch of other topics, but Google how to spend less than you earn, research how to spend less than you earn. It's so important. My third and final point, and I'm still learning on this because there's so much out there, is you have to learn to invest. All right. I'm not knocking the financial system in Canada. I'm grateful that I'm part of this banking system and I'm grateful that I'm a Canadian. But I will say, if you're just having your money in the bank, unfortunately, with inflation and the way the economy goes, your money becomes less in value. And I learned that over the years. The same $10,000 that I had in there 5 years ago is less than $10,000. So you have to learn how to invest. Okay, I want to say I'm not a financial advisor. This is not a show to give any type of financial advice in regards to like, this is the investment you should make. But talk to someone in that industry, talk to someone in that field, learn to grow your money, all right? Because it's losing money just sitting there. So these are 3 money tips. I have a bunch. If you want to tap in with some more, comment below or send me a DM, all right? Tawanda, money.
Yeah, man. I agree with, everything that you talked about. Yeah, for sure. And I think the most important piece of that, I think, is educating yourself, right? And you're right. We're not financial advisors, so we're not here to give you financial advice on what specifically you should invest on. I think you have, experts that you can talk to that can give you those sort of that type of guidance. But I think what we want to do this show really is to talk about our personal story and our experiences with money, like the way you started, right? Like, hey, my situation is like this, and some of the things that you have gone through, in terms of why it's important to save money. You were laid off at one point, it took you time to get a job. You talk about lifestyle creep. You get a raise or you get a new job with more money and suddenly your expenses go up because suddenly you're like, I can afford this, I can afford that. And, or you start competing with somebody. I think I had somebody say, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like.
Wow.
Right? I don't know if it's Dave Ramsey or one of these financial gurus, experts who say that, but it's a very powerful statement. Most of the time, if you look about it with money, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. And most of the things we're buying on credit.
That's right.
It's not your money, right? It's credit. You borrow that and you have to pay that with interest and all those things, right? So I think for me, like if I go back to those 3 tips, I think number 1, the first one is you need to budget.
Yeah.
You need to have a structure and a plan in place that shows you how you are using your money, what's coming in and what's going out, right? I think one of the reasons why most people get really into trouble with money is we are not budgeting. We're just spending money as it comes. We're just spending money as it comes, but we actually don't have a plan to begin the month to say, okay, fine, this is my expenses for the whole month, and this is what I need to cover, right? This is the income that I have that's coming in, and this is what's going out. I would say that's probably the number 1 thing before you do anything else. Have a plan. It doesn't matter how much money you get, because I think people think if you need to be ultra wealthy, with a lot of money to start budgeting. No, you start with where you are. You start where you are because you build those habits, slowly and over time, you get to see what's happening with your money. And I think for me, that's something that I really, really improved, especially over the last couple of years, to really I know every dollar in my budget is accounted for.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Every dollar is accounted for. I know what's coming in and I know what's going out and I know where it's going, right? And if I get to a point where I overspend in a certain area, then I go into a certain area and I have to get that money from that part. Like I have to literally take it from somewhere without overspending. Just move things a little bit sometimes if I have to, but I stay within the plan that I have, right? Yeah. So I think budgeting is really, really important. And I think there's sort of, like I said, there are a lot of tools you can use. There are a lot of tools that you can use, I think, to be able to manage your budget. The second aspect is definitely, I would say, getting out of debt.
Yeah.
We are here, talking about men and business and entrepreneurship. One of the reasons why many of us are not able to do the things we need to do is because we have debt. And so we just have to stick with certain things that we don't enjoy because I got to pay that debt out, right? It doesn't give you the freedom that you need. So I think for me over the years, especially the last couple of years, when I paid all my debt, I think that really helped me. That really helped me to know like, okay, I don't owe anybody any money. I have the freedom for me to do what I need to do with me, right? Before I even spend any money, I have to make sure I have it. I have the money I need to spend, right? So I think that's, to me, the most important thing. And there's a lot of wonderful folks like Dave Ramsey. They talk about this, man. If you don't know, check it out. It helped me. I'll be honest with you, man. Those things really helped me when I needed the tools, when I needed the resources, and it was able to help me put my financial house in order. So that's my second point. And obviously the third point, I would say, like you said, saving your money and investing your money. That's all important. I think if you can budget, if you can get out of debt, and if you can save and invest, you see that over time your money gets better, right? Like you talked about, saving money, in an emergency fund, whatever. I mean, they say 3 to 6 months, right? But you could save more for sure, depending on your needs and your goals and where you're trying to go. That I think is really important, because once you get those things in order, I think it helps with just decisions and lifestyle and where you go next. And it simplifies a lot of things for you.
Wow. I don't know about you guys, but my page is full with notes because Tawanda just said a bunch of key things that can really help you. And I heard you say two things that really resonated with me was having that plan.
Yeah.
I'm saying this right, but preparing to plan. If you don't plan, if you don't have a plan, you fail.
Something like failure to plan is planning to fail.
There you go.
Something like that.
It's planning to fail.
Failure to plan. Exactly.
Yeah. Stuck with me right away. Exactly.
I had a teacher, I think it was my teacher in high school, if I remember. It's similar to planning, but it's more about preparation. But, it's kind of works at the same time. She used to have what's called the 7 Ps. Yeah. She'd say, a prior proper preparation prevents a pretty poor performance.
There you go.
With anything, even with your money, if you don't prepare and plan your money, I think Dave Ramsey said, he said, money is 20% math and 80% behavior.
There you go.
20% is the math. You look at your budget, what's coming in, what's going on, and all that stuff. 80% is what we do, our habits, our behaviors, the impulsiveness that we have. Sometimes we buy things we don't need because it was on sale. Oh my God, I can buy like 6 of these, right?
That's true. Or you see people on the street just drinking at Starbucks, and then all of a sudden your mind just thinks, oh, I need to go get
yeah. I used to drink coffee too, so I have a history, man. Like, I'm not speaking from a position of perfect here, like, I'm a perfect man with this. No, man, I've come from a long history of making mistakes, getting better, and really getting to a point. I think a couple of years ago, I said, Tawanda, you need to get your act together, bro. And I'm glad I did.
That's good. And you said the second thing that really resonated with me was paying off your debt. Like, that's so important. The less people in your pockets, the better. That extra money, let's say it's a car payment. That extra money, let's say the average car payment is probably $700 to $1,000 a month. Imagine what you could do with $700 to $1,000 per month, whether that's you invest, whether that's you're interested in starting a business, whatever it is. Imagine you paying off your mortgage or your rent. That's an extra $700 to $1,000. So getting people out of your pockets is key. So there's a bunch of tips there. And I want to, in the future episodes, I think money is going to be topics that we can continuously.
Yeah, we might need to go deeper at some point for sure, because you're right. There's a lot to say.
Yeah, because now that we're talking, I'm like, this whole episode could be about money, right?
Oh yeah, easy, man. Easy for sure.
Very easy. Could all be about. All right. So I want to shift because, there's this kind of like narrative in our culture right now about like employee versus entrepreneur. And it's a big topic of discussion, and I've had firsthand experience as an entrepreneur working with my dad, and currently I have a job. So I'm an employee.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people, and I'm going to say this because I want to be real with people, is they got what it takes to be an entrepreneur, but they have no idea what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And I think that if you think you want to be an entrepreneur, first of all, like, keep your job, start your business. And if your business is making money, then at that point, leave your job. Because I know a lot of people are like, burn that bridge, get rid of the job, just start my business. And then they don't make any money. And they're like, what did I just sign up for? So for me personally, like, make sure you have something going first before you quit your job. Or if you do quit your job, you have a lot of money there that if this doesn't work, at least you have something to fall back on. Because entrepreneurship is a different game. And if your personality is not wired a certain way, then you're just not going to make it. You're not going to stay in the game long term. You're not going to be able to continuously go and make money, and I think it's like a cool thing. Maybe it's a millennial thing, right? I'm a millennial and it's like a cool thing to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I was reading some stats and you guys could do your own research, but employees make more than the average entrepreneur, right? So for a lot of you guys, it's better for you to have a job. It's better for you guys to work a 9 to 5, unless you have some really deep passion, unless you have a business that, is going to generate some money, or you started a business and now like it's making more than your job, then get in that, be be an entrepreneur, right? So for me, I have a few other things I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to pass it over to you. For me, like really know, what you're getting yourself into. And I don't want to put down the employee side because I know there's a lot of clips out there that'll be like, oh, you're a slave if you're an employee, or, like you're crazy for having a job. Don't work hard at your job if you do have a job. But my thing is like, work hard at your job because you can't just like now all of a sudden turn it on when you want to be an entrepreneur. No, you take those habits from your job that you've built of working hard, hustling, grinding to the other side if you want to be an entrepreneur. So be careful of all the information that's out there that you're hearing about the whole employee versus entrepreneur debate and topic, and talk to people that are entrepreneurs like Tawanda himself and people who have been in that or people who have walked that and seen that other side, right? So, I have a bunch of other topics, but Tawanda, I just want to start there and pass it to you.
No, that's great perspective, man. I appreciate that. I think it's great to be an entrepreneur for sure. I come from the perspective that I think, you're right. There's some people that just maybe they don't have it like because it takes a lot to be an entrepreneur. I think you gotta have the passion, especially in the beginning when you're building a business. Like it takes time, man. And you're gonna have the passion. You need the resources to do it. But nowadays it's pretty fairly easy to get into entrepreneurship than if you 20, 40, 50 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Because of technology and AI and all these tools that are coming up, it's really pretty easy to get into entrepreneurs. So I think the cost of entry has actually gone down for most entrepreneurs. And so, which I think, I don't know, I read a book a couple of years ago called The $100 Startup. I forgot the guy who wrote the book, but he was really talking about this idea, sharing examples of people who started businesses with just $100 or less.
Yeah.
And they were really successful. So the cost of entry is not that much. I think going back to what you mentioned is sometimes we do glamorize entrepreneurship too much. And we don't talk honestly about the struggle, about the behind the scenes. We were talking last week about the journey. We don't talk about honestly about what it takes to actually be a successful entrepreneur. Because you see all the startups that we celebrate when they get to $1 billion, $10 billion valuations and all this stuff, right? But we don't really talk about, the process it took to get there, right? We just celebrate the final outcomes. I don't want to discourage people who want to be entrepreneurs. I think the focus should be educating people, supporting people, getting coaching and mentoring, surrounding yourself with people that actually can support you, entrepreneur that you want to be. There's nothing wrong with working to 9 to 5 if that's what you desire, right? I think we all have done it. And so I don't think that it helps either to say, oh, everybody who's working 9 to 5 is this and that. No, I don't agree with that at all. I think it's people have the right to choose how they want to live their life. And so I'm a great supporter for that if you choose that for yourself, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Just as I'm a great supporter of entrepreneurship if you choose that for yourself. I coach young leaders, and some of the young leaders that I coach are entrepreneurs, building companies, early stage startups, young people, right, who are building these companies. I also coach young leaders who are working within these companies. They're working 9 to 5.
Exactly.
Right? They want to grow their teams. They want to take their teams to the next level. They're like, how do I do that? What's the strategy for me to grow as a leader? So there's value in all of that. And so I think it's just the context, more so I think the message and how we position that message. So I would say, however, that if you decide that entrepreneurship is what you want to do, I really think you need to have a plan on how you're going to do it. I think that's the problem with people. We get into things without a plan. Going back to money and budgeting. It comes down to a plan. And I think the entrepreneurs that have a fighting chance of succeeding and making it is you have a plan. I read a book a couple of years ago that really helped me, especially when I was going through my transition to start a business. It's called by Michael Neal.
Michael Neal, okay.
Michael Neal. It's called You Can Have What You Want.
Wow, you can have what you want.
You can have what you want. And in this book, he talks about this concept going back to money, bro. He talks about the transition from employee to entrepreneur. So this is for people who want to transition. If you have a passion for entrepreneurship, I encourage you to pursue that, right? Because I think we got to encourage people. If you want to pursue entrepreneurship, go for it. But have a plan, get coaching, get resources, especially like if you're in Toronto, like, man, there's a lot of resources for entrepreneurs. He talks about this transition from employee to entrepreneur, and he talks about what he calls a freedom fund. It was my first time hearing about that concept of freedom fund, which is money you put aside specifically for that. It's not an emergency fund. It's separate from your emergency fund, because your emergency fund is for emergencies, things that you did not see coming.
Right.
If you plan to quit your job to start a business, that's not an emergency. That's a decision you're making. So you have to put money. So he talks about putting money 6 to 12 months of expenses, because that's usually the amount of time it takes for you to start seeing results with your business, get that first client, and then the next step. So it really helped me. And that's when I actually started putting money aside to create my freedom fund, which was separate from my emergency fund, specifically to jump in and test some of the ideas that I have and execute some of the strategies that I needed to execute process it and doing it without having to worry about money.
Right.
So it always goes back to how you plan these things. I
Yeah.
think if you plan it really well, I'm not saying you be a slave to planning. I think action is way more important than over planning.
Yep.
But I think you have to have some sort of, like in entrepreneurship, they talk about this minimum viable product or minimum viable brand. You gotta have something at least that is the beginning, that is the foundation that helps you to get to the next level.
Right. Wow. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Yeah. So it stems back to the plan, right? If you don't have a
Yeah,
plan, you're preparing to fail, right? You need
yeah,
to set yourself up in a certain way. And like Tawanda said, you need someone who could potentially coach you, right?
yeah,
And we don't want you to, failure is part of the process. So if you're going to go on that journey, just realize that failure might occur, right? Failure might happen. But if you're someone that off the first time you fail, you give up, then entrepreneurship isn't for you. You could still be, like you said, like you coach leaders that are within
yeah,
companies. You could still become a CEO of a company, an
yeah,
executive
yeah,
of a
yeah,
company. You
yeah.
don't necessarily have to start your own
Can
company.
I be honest with you?
Yes.
A lot of the things I learned that helped me do better in my 9 to 5 job, most of the organizations I've worked for,
Yeah.
most of the places I work for, the skills that I learned to do better there was because of what I was doing as an entrepreneur on the side.
There you go.
And I know we have a topic, we're going to talk about that coming up.
Yeah.
It was through entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It was running all these side hustles and trying and failing and getting back up and failing and getting back
Yeah.
up and failing. And so I took a lot of those skills and I started to really do well, even in my 9 to 5 job, because it wasn't failure. I was getting to see what works and what doesn't work, right?
Exactly.
That's why sometimes you start a business while you still have your 9 to 5, so you
Yep.
can explore and see what happens. That's a good strategy.
Yep.
Sometimes you're like, you know what? I have enough money saved in my freedom fund. I want to jump in and go do that. That's a great plan as well. You can go
Exactly.
do that. I wouldn't just jump with 3 months of savings. I don't think that. I probably wouldn't. I don't know. Some people might.
Yeah.
But if I only have 3 months of savings, I'm like, nah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
wait a little
Exactly.
bit. But it just goes back to individuals, because at the end of the day, I mean, everybody has the freedom to do what they want. But I think there are things that work that we know I want to share. Yeah.
Yeah. And that point, you prove one of the points I had said was when you're at your job and let's say you have this ambition or this feeling inside of you that you want to be an entrepreneur, then while you're at your job, be an entrepreneur at that job.
Oh, 100%.
Hustle, work hard,
Yeah.
best promotion, create things,
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
say, oh, I'm gonna get bare minimum, because people think like how you like being an athlete, how you practice is how you're gonna play.
Oh, for
So
sure.
if you go to your job and you're halving it and now expect that you're gonna build some multi-billion-dollar business, then you're living in fantasy land. And I don't
Yeah.
want you guys to live in fantasy land. Like fantasy land is amazing, but we're talking reality here. And this is what I want to give you guys on the show. We want to be your reality check. We want to keep it real with you guys. Me saying what I'm saying wasn't to discourage anybody, because I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
if you have that passion, that drive,
Yeah.
I think you go for it because it's such a beautiful thing. It's creativity at its
Yeah.
finest,
Yeah.
what God has blessed us with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to also be real with yourself. Tawanda, you want
Yeah.
to say?
Yeah. I agree with you, man. I really think that everybody should have a side hustle. That's my belief.
Yeah.
I think there's actually a scripture in the Bible that I can quote, that I can use not to
Please,
defend,
please.
but to. I think I did share this with you a while back. We were at the
Yeah.
gym. I think it was
Yes, you
Ecclesiastes
told me. You
chapter
told me.
11. You
Seven
remember
or eight.
that?
7 or 8. Yeah. 7 or 8. It was like 7 or 8.
Yeah, yeah. Remember that scripture?
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah. You
gave it
sent
to
it
you.
to me. You
Yeah,
sent it to me. You sent it to
it
me.
talks about plant your seed during the day, and in the evenings, don't let your hands get idle, something like that, right?
Yes, yes,
Which I
yes.
think it goes back to the idea of, yeah, you got to try things, because even right now, you see, a lot of people are getting laid off. People are getting laid off. So you want to be able to have something on the side that you're working on, so that at the point where you get laid off, you have something that you've been building, right? And you can
Exactly.
build slowly and slowly. I really believe that. I mean, not everybody might have the means or the time to be able to do this, and I understand that, but it's just a belief of mine that I have, that I really think, especially today with the resources and the technology that we have, you can actually create a side hustle on the side and solve some problems and become an entrepreneur. And who knows? A lot of people are making so much money with their side hustles, and they quit their job in 6 months, in a year, 2 years. It doesn't matter. Your journey is going to be different from everybody else. Don't compete with anybody. Don't compare yourself with anybody. Follow your strategy, follow your plan, and the goals that you have for you, and be okay with that, and not overly think about, oh, what other people are doing, because I think that can paralyze you sometimes when you see other people making it and you think, oh, it's overnight success. No, you don't know their story. You don't
Exactly.
know what's going on. So I think when you talk about employee to entrepreneur and some of the layoffs that I have seen, I think it's important at some point. And I know I've been speaking to a lot of people, young people as well, who are coming up to me and say, hey, Tawanda, I have somebody who just sent me their business plan just last week. They're like, can you look at this? And, because with all these layoffs going on, I think I need to go into business.
Yeah.
So I think that's good thinking from my perspective.
Exactly. And I support that 100%, because at the end of the day, someone who has been laid off from a job,
Yeah.
if I knew that was going to happen, it would have been perfect to have a business set up, because at the end of the day, although I'm laid off, I still have something I can go to, I can turn to. I'm still able to generate revenue. So I think, like you said, everyone should have some side hustle. And if you're unsure, I want to say this, if you're unsure what side hustle that you want to start, I'm going to say, try this strategy. What is something that you love to do for free? What is something that you're passionate about? And it could be something like you love braiding hair, or it could be you love playing basketball, right? You could be a hairstylist and you can braid people's hair. There's a business idea right there. You could be a coach. You could train young athletes on skill development and how to get better. So you could start there, because I hear people say all the time, oh, I don't know what business to start. Start with the things that you are great at. Start at the things where people call you and ask you questions on those specific topics. Clearly, that's your strengths, right? So start there. Is there a place that people can start that you suggest? Like, because you said side hustles, like what are some?
Yeah, I think, you could do your research. I think that's the first thing. I think you do your research. I think the other way to look at it is, I think if you just like one of those people, you just try to read and see what other people are doing and learn from other people. You may find things that excite you, that you really want to try and see where you go from there. I was reading a story just a couple of days ago about young people buying these boring businesses from folks that are retiring, like a laundromat.
Right.
Running a laundromat, getting into that and realizing I want to get into this, and they're making money through that. And they're turning these things into successful businesses, right? So they're buying these boring businesses that most people don't even know about, right? So it doesn't have to be. I know when we talk about entrepreneurship, everybody's talking about the fancy stuff, the shiny stuff. Everybody want to be the next tech billionaire, right? But that's not always what it is. I think it's really solving everyday problems, and I think that's probably the most important point I can say is you really want to solve problems that people have.
Problems.
What is the problem that you're solving for people, right? That's when you look at successful businesses and successful entrepreneurs, they're actually solving a problem in the marketplace. There's a need that people have. There's a pain point that people have. Figure out what that pain point is. Figure out what that need is and try to come up with a solution to solve that problem, right? Because I know we talk about passion and excitement. It's great to have those things because I think they can sustain you through the journey of entrepreneurship when things get hard. If you're not passionate about what you do, trust me, I can tell you from experience. You hit some walls and you're like, oh my God. Only thing that made me get up the next day was the passion, baby. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You see that passion is coming now. Oh, Lord Jesus, help us. I just called you baby, man. I just got caught up in the moment. Oh man, I'm talking to everybody here. I'm just talking to the audience, okay? So, we'll let it go.
Honestly, it's a passion. Like, hey, I'm putting it out there. I've been on YouTube for 3 years. I get 300 views, but I have a passion. So
you have a passion for it, right? Exactly.
I'm going.
Because some people look at it, they're like, oh, I put this video out there 2 weeks ago. I only have 10 views. I'm done. I'm not doing it.
I'm done. That means
it's not about that, man. It's about the passion, and passion helps. But I think what keeps you going as well, I think as you build your passion, I think is finding out what are the specific problems that people are struggling with in their lives and how can I help solve those problems. I think if you could come up with a solution that fits, that meet a market need and can solve a problem, I think that's where you start to see results, right? That's where you see people start to give you their money because, you're meeting a need. People have a pain point, they issues and struggles and things they want to solve, right? And if you can figure out what that is, I used to teach young entrepreneurs. I was a business facilitator, and one of the things I always talk to these young entrepreneurs about is this idea of, I don't know if you've heard about ethnographic research.
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, ethnography, which is really talk to the communities that you're trying to sell to.
Right.
To the communities that you're trying to market to, the people you're trying to do business with. What are their needs? What are their pain points? What's going on with these communities? What are the issues that are going on deep within these communities? So you can find that problem and go after that.
That's right. Right.
And I think sometimes that's where most people usually make the mistake. I mean, just have conversations with people. Like when I go to networking events, you know what I do? I'm talking to people. I'm asking questions. I'm listening. Okay, what about this? What about this? And I'm getting information.
Yeah.
Just networking. I'm literally conducting interviews in that networking event by asking questions and having conversations with people. That gives you information, so you start to see what's going on in people's lives, in
Right.
their businesses, in their careers, in their relationships, in their families, and be like, hey, well, if I could create this, would you buy that? Would you be interested in maybe, maybe not, or if you do this, maybe I might consider, right? And that's how you go from this. That's how I see it, man.
That's beautiful. Guys, you just got a masterclass on entrepreneurship. You just got, you know what? You just got a coaching session, a free coaching session. All right. So
Yes.
go back, take notes. Maybe you're someone that, has been on the fence for a very long time and, you just want to take that jump,
Yeah.
take that jump. Or maybe you're someone who has been like contemplating business ideas on your mind. Try that business out, right? You've been going back and forth. You can't sleep at night because you're like, I have this burning desire to start something. Start it. You will never know unless you start it. All right. We will dive a lot deeper into entrepreneurship in the following shows.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are running out of time here. Unfortunately, I know you guys want more, but you're going to have to wait to the next show, to get more information, to get more coaching, to get more wisdom. All right. I want you guys to comment below. Comment on, topics that you'd like us to discuss. Share this video. It's important that you share this video with someone. Maybe you were in a conversation with a friend and some of the topics that we brought up, you were speaking to this with a friend. You need to share this with a friend and have them listen to this, help other people out there. And I want to finish off the show with a quote. All right. So I have a quote, and Tawanda is full of quotes. So my quote of the show is, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. All right. So let that sink in. You can't see the picture when you are in the frame. So that's why I believe that you need a coach, you need an accountability partner to show you, maybe things you can't see because you're in it. And
Yeah.
a lot of times we think we can solve everything ourselves.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we need someone else to help us, to guide us. And that's why you have two amazing coaches here, amazing people here on the show that you're going to want to tap into and listen to and follow and become a part of this community so you can get help, you can get coached. So the things that you can't see, we can help you see. All right. Is there a quote that you want to share?
Great quote, man. And I think, like you say, accountability, getting somebody to give you a different perspective. I know we're going to talk about this at some point, but the quote I wanted to share was from Jim Rohn. He said, he was a motivational speaker, and he said, formal education will make you a living.
Yeah.
But self-education will make you a fortune.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Formal education will make you a living.
Yeah.
Self-education will make you a fortune.
Wow. Let that
A
sink.
lot of the things that I did in my life, including the work I've done in the companies and organizations I've worked for, I didn't learn that at school.
No.
If you go look at my resume and what I studied in school and the jobs I've done and the things that I've done, you see very little connection. You see very little connection. Yeah, there's connection for sure, but you see very little of that, especially in the beginning, right? But over time, I think what I've learned to do is just to borrow from that and sort of, improve. But a lot of it was just educating myself, reading books like this one right here,
Wow.
Blue Ocean Strategy, how to create uncontested market space and make the competition irrelevant. For anybody who is a business leader, wants to get into entrepreneurship, on how to create uncontested market space and build a business where you literally make the competition irrelevant. Great book by Chan Kim and Renee Marbon. It's a book that came out a long time ago. I always wanted to read it, so I got it. I'm reading it right now. Great book, man, about just strategy, especially business thinking and how to execute, how to just create something that makes the competition irrelevant. So it's educating myself and learning these things. And actually, as I'm reading it, I'm actually going to my business and I'm thinking, okay, fine, how do I implement this right now?
Yeah.
I was just doing a little exercise myself in my head, even this afternoon, like, okay, I can ask myself these questions to wonder, like I'm trying to figure out some of the principles in the book and how I can apply them into my own business. So self-education is very powerful, man, especially right now with YouTube and all these resources. Educate yourself and you thank yourself for that, for sure.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we will talk about self-education versus school education on the next episode. And since I think you've dropped about three or four books in this episode. I want to drop two books. The first book is Psychology of Money because we spoke about that one and you said, was it 80% was behavior? And
Yeah, so money's 20% math, 80% behavior.
exactly. So Psychology of Money, it's your
Yeah,
psychology, right? So read
yeah.
that book. And the book I'm currently reading right now is Never Finished by David Goggins. I don't know if anybody knows David
I
Goggins.
know him. I
It's a
haven't read
beautiful
his books,
story.
but I should check him out.
Check him out. Beautiful story. A lot of people don't realize, like David Goggins is an entrepreneur, and people don't realize, like his messed up past, and he talks about how messed up his past was, made him into this strong person who he is today. All right. So if you're someone that maybe you have a messed up past, a hard life, maybe you were homeless your whole life, or maybe you came from a home where like it was broken or whatnot, or maybe you had no parental support, you could still make it. You can inspire the world. All right. So
Yeah.
this one I'm reading right now is called Never Finished by David Goggins. So inspiring. If you need some inspiration, first off, you got to come to our channel. But second off,
Oh,
read,
for sure.
tap into David Goggins. All right, guys, what a great episode. I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling super inspired. I'm actually going to tap into my book after this episode. I'm going to write some notes. I'm charged up right now. And that's just the goal. We want to see men evolve, grow, give you encouragement, inspire you, make you, if your mindset was before the show was like you didn't believe in yourself, if your mindset was there's no opportunities, if your mindset is entrepreneurship is this and that, I hope we shifted your mindset to believe that you can accomplish anything, you could achieve anything, you could do whatever that you want in this world. You could become what you want. Create yourself. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I want to remind you to like, share, subscribe, comment. All right. Tawanda.
Yeah, man, I think this has been great. And it just as you were speaking, man, that mindset is so powerful. You probably know this. I came across when I was in college, that was my first time I came across Napoleon Hill, the writings of Napoleon Hill, and I got his book,
Think and
Think
Grow
and Grow
Rich.
Rich. And
Beautiful.
he had a quote in that book, man, which said, whatever the human mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. I
Yes.
ran with that for the rest of my college life. And
Yes.
like for the next couple of years, I was just running with that, man.
Yeah.
Whatever the human mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. And
Yep.
so,
Yep.
that's what it is. It's your mindset. It's how you
Mindset.
think, right? Even the Bible says that as a man thinketh,
So
so
he
he is, right?
so
So
he is.
it goes back to just your thinking and how you do things. So I hope through this podcast and this episode today, we shifted a little bit of that thinking so you can see that there are possibilities, that the only thing stopping you is your mind, nothing else. And if you could get that right, you can go places for sure.
Episode 2. Oh, this was explosive. Guys, you do not want to miss these episodes that we have on a weekly basis. All right, share, like, subscribe.
Awesome.
Until next time, I'm super excited. Thank
Awesome, man. Love you,
you.
brother. Take
Yes,
care.
sir. Thank you.
Awesome.